All right, folks, welcome back to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. We have episode number 193 tonight. Maurice is actually out of town, and we have a buddy guest filling in. And so we're going to be discussing Bicycle Day, the origins, the history, and then, maybe a little bit of our own experiences with LSD. But before we get started, why doesn't everybody head on over to Patreon? You can check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/mindescapepodcast. For just $2 a month, you'll get exclusive guest episodes and segments. I just uploaded an episode we did with Anthony Tyler where we discussed good versus evil and the metaphysics of it. Is there some sort of metaphysical good, metaphysical evil, or is this just all the psyche and the way it manifests? So go check that out. And I'll make this pitch. If you listen to our show and you like our show, for just $2 a month, we have like a whole other catalog of episodes we've done with guests that we've had on our show and extra segments and stuff that's exclusive that's just on there as well. So go check that out. And one more thing, head on over to indrasweb.org. It is live. This is the social media platform we created to connect open minds. If you like discussing different outside the box hypotheses, theories, speculations, it's the perfect place to do it, especially if you like the topics that we discuss on this podcast regularly. So head on over to there. And without further ado, welcome on the show, Trent.
Hey, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I know you and I go back and forth a lot. Actually, and the way we met was through, I think, was DMT World and
That's right.
that community and stuff. And now I joined your Discord and you've joined ours, and we go back and forth on there as well. But you have a podcast called Continuing the Conversation. What's the full length, though, so people can find it? Because I know there's a couple Continuing the Conversation.
So it's Continuing the Conversation, a DW podcast, and it's just linked to DMT World. That's where we all met and started. This thing evolved from originally just being a chat group to we started having audio chats, and we do them like once a week. And then eventually we were recording them just so we could hear ourselves and like listen back and because we're constantly just during our conversation throwing out different sources and all this. So it was cool to record it and be able to listen back and like, oh, that's right, I wanted to read this and I wanted him to read that. And
right.
and then finally I'm sitting there on this pile of recordings and I'm like, oh, I should just release this so we can all hear them and other people can hear them and join us. And that's the whole point, is just to not I have a group of people that I want to talk with.
Right.
It's here's a conversation, come join us,
Right. And they do it on Discord, and like he said,
right.
Anybody can kind of jump in. And I think the one I jumped in on, we talked about psychedelics, we talked about Indra's Web a little bit, we talked about, there's a whole bunch of stuff we got to in there. But yeah, it's a great idea, and I think that when anybody can kind of participate like that, you definitely have a lot of different takes and perspectives. And I thought
the group it's been really cool because we have kind of been, it's you're not just talking once a week, it's Discord chatting all the time. So it's people that you're getting to know a little bit, and then in these chats you can dive deeper, because I also found recently there's the Clubhouse app, and I think it's exactly what I was kind of going for, is just being able to like anybody jump in and chat and throw in your opinion. But this Clubhouse is still so anonymous that it's more of somebody being like, oh, this is my opinion, and then somebody else saying, this is my opinion. And there's never much back and forth because there's no like chemistry between the people.
Right.
So this group has been a fun way because we've built that chemistry. We have those connections already. So now we can kind of pick at each other and, dive deeper.
That's
together.
Awesome. I have the link down below if anybody's interested. I have the link down below.
Us, come chat.
Check it out. So let's get to the business at hand, which would be Bicycle Day. So Bicycle Day is April 19th. This is the 78th anniversary of when Dr. Albert Hofmann first intentionally experienced LSD 25. He actually created it or developed it in 1938 when he worked at Sandoz Pharmaceutical in Basel, Switzerland. And then I think on April 16th is when he
Got a little bit
yeah,
on himself.
yeah, unintentionally had like a microdose, right? Because
Yeah.
I have actually a journal log from I think one of his journals where he describes it. So this is from okay, so this is a journal log. It says last Friday, April 16th, 1943, I was forced to interrupt my work in the laboratory in the middle of the afternoon and proceed home. Being affected by a remarkable relentless combined with a slight dizziness. At home I lay down and sank into a not unpleasant intoxicated like characterized by an extremely simulated imagination. In a dreamlike state with eyes closed, I found the daylight to be unpleasantly glaring. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, extraordinary shapes with intense kaleidoscope play of colors. After some 2 hours, this condition faded away. So 2 hours, that must have been a tiny bit, because if you're taking pure LSD...
We all know how long it lasts.
Yeah, what, 10, 12 hours, sometimes longer, so...
I've heard the theory that this wasn't an LSD experience. This was a mystical experience that he had. That something called out to him and said, "Hey, there's something there. You better go check."
Right. I mean, it's so that was so. April 16th again, he had this little bit, and then April 19th is when he's like, "Okay, now I'm gonna try this again and see what happens."
Right.
And he takes it and he rides his bike home, and the rest is history. And now a lot of people, or I would say most people that know about psychedelics, know about LSD and Albert Hofmann.
Yeah, definitely. There's also the question of how much was his experience there, and there's some debate as to how much that was too for his full-blown.
Yeah, how much are people saying? Because I haven't looked into the dosage that much.
I think it was 250 micrograms, I think, is what what he had said he was going to take, which is, more than you need.
Yeah, especially if he created it himself too, and
right.
It's pure
synthesized. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, because I think back and it would be so weird to experience something like that and not have the context, even though you're a scientist, you're a chemist, you know about all these different compounds. Obviously, it was known that there's psychoactive compounds out there in the world, but to synthesize one, or create one is a whole different story.
Yeah, no, I always wondered that too about his 2-hour experience was, he had no frame of reference for this experience. So how much of it, maybe he just saw colors for a couple hours. So that was what he was thinking for a couple hours, whereas the thing lasted longer. I don't know. I always think, because it is interesting. He's the one that nobody could tell him what it was like.
Right.
He got to be the one that said, this is what it's like. Which is pretty cool.
Do you think it takes a certain type of person too? Like, do you think he was like an open-minded person before that? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like, cause you could be some sort of like a very materialistic, strict scientist, by the scientific method, and maybe not want to take it again or have that same experience. Maybe you don't like it. There's a lot of people that don't like losing control like that.
Right. Yeah, I think the fact that he had that small experience and said, "Oh, I need to go back for more," kind of tells you that he's that type of person, There's some of us that get that taste and say, "Oh, there's a lot more in the well. I need to dip the bucket back in," you know. So, well,
that's interesting. I mean, I wonder that for 2 hours too. Like, I've actually never microdosed LSD before. I microdosed psilocybin a bunch back in my younger years, but I've never microdosed LSD. I mean, I've done it a decent amount when I was younger, but I've never taken just a little bit. So I wonder.
Yeah, in my experience, you don't get much. You don't feel much. It's never like a shortened thing. It's always like, no matter how much you do, it's there for a certain period of time. It's just
So
how
have
strong.
you microdosed it or taken just
Yeah,
a little bit? And
for sure.
what was that like? Was it still that you're saying that was still like long or?
Yeah, it was still the same. It still had its like length duration. You know, you're in it for that amount of time. I feel like no matter what, however much you do, it's just how intense that's going to be for you.
So do you think it would be
Uh,
like the peak or the plateaus less amount of time then or?
yeah, yeah, you probably have a shorter plateau. Um, but I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm,
Every time's so different. It's hard to
right.
generalize any of it, you know. I've
I
had
mean,
some that I've been told, you know, whatever I had was like the smallest amount ever, and those are the times that it's like gone, other world.
yeah,
So,
usually you'll see somebody take like one tab and then cut it into like 9 little
yeah.
pieces or something like that. And then again, I've never done that.
For the
Um,
micro, I've always done where you dissolve it and then you can take drops and then you
yeah.
know how
The
much
first
liquid.
time I took it, we went, I think I was 18 and I had just moved to Chicago and I went to one of my buddy's house and he's like, "Oh, you want to, try this?" And I didn't take it that night, but he dropped some liquid onto a couple sugar cubes and then I think my buddy came over that weekend and we were just going to hang out and we watched The Wall. Huge mistake. This was like a very heady psychological I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. It wasn't like bad in the sense that, but it was just almost like it opened my eyes to like, how The Wall is like people coming back from
Yeah.
war and they're all messed
Yeah.
up and constant showing of like meat grinder, so it's just like
Right.
it's this and I love Pink Floyd, by the way. They're
Yeah.
one of my top
Yeah.
5 bands of all
Some of
time.
those movies I've done the same with like Requiem for a Dream
Oh,
and
that
that state,
was
you know, like that's brutal to
I've
do when
done that.
you're
Did you hear
in
the
that.
episode where I talked about how we did DXM and then watched
Yeah.
that? That was a
Yeah.
mistake, dude. That was a huge mistake. But yeah, like all those movies that came out around the time, like Spun, Requiem for a
Yeah.
Dream, like that. Those
Right.
aren't ones that you want to be,
Yeah. And
tripping
somehow
out
I
to.
still did it to myself.
Yeah, it's painful.
It is. It is. You want to be watching something pretty like oh, what are the Indian films? The really pretty like Dharma films.
mm,
Those are the best. Just flowers
yeah.
blooming, you know, that's what you want to watch.
Yeah, my one buddy used to put on these like before this was like a thing. He used to have these VHSs of like the different like color pattern stuff, like the screensaver things that used to be on uh,
Yeah.
computers, and like now it's like you can find it on channels like meditation stuff on YouTube
Right.
and stuff like that. But those fractals and like the moving fractals and everything. He used to have these VHSs before it was even a thing, and he'd put those on it. I thought that was actually kind of cool back then.
Heck yeah.
Um,
Now you could make it an NFT. You just
yeah,
attach a little tag to it and it's worth money.
yeah.
Magic. Magic.
Um, so I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like, most of my LSD experiences have been either at Fish shows, jam band shows, Bonnaroo, fish
Yeah.
festivals, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then that one time, like I just mentioned, that was an intense time. And then one time I did take it in my bedroom, and I just listened to music the whole time, and it was pretty incredible. But yeah, I mean, I haven't done it a ton. It's psilocybin's more of my plant spirit,
Yeah.
or my
Yeah.
fungus spirit.
Yeah, the LSD it grabbed me early. That was one of my favorites from, being young. And now it's 20 years later, whatever, and still like one of my first experiences with a guy that just last year we were in a river basin whitewater rafting one weekend and we dipped back in and said hello together. And it's cool because it's the relationships that I've built through years of,
Right.
dabbling and the community that surrounds it. Like you said, the fish shows and the deadheads. And,
Yeah.
it's cool to go to those communities and being plugged into them. And, you all enjoy something similar and it builds a strong bond. And it's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun at the fish show. It's fun at your house. It's fun in the woods. It's fun in my yard. Like it's just it's such a versatile thing. Whereas mushrooms, I end up just laying eyes closed,
Uh-huh.
going inside. But with LSD, it's always more fun to go explore. Everything's more fun.
Yeah. See, I I haven't done it in LSD in a long time. And there's probably a reason for that. And I mentioned, actually, you mentioned having fun at like concerts. I mentioned on that episode we had Matthew Johnson on the last Fish show I was at here in Chicago with, on a decent amount of MDMA.
Yeah.
I think it was like point 0.2, so
Yeah.
that's a hefty amount.
That was the jellyfish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
closed
Yeah.
eye and opened eye jellyfish for like a long time. So
Yeah, I remember that story. That's awesome, man.
but that kind of like turned me off of like doing it at shows. Not that whatever. I mean, I'm kind of an in the moment person in a way, but at the same time, it's like I'm not going out there looking to do that kind of stuff
Yeah.
anymore. I'm more fascinated with, you mentioned closing my eyes, psilocybin, meditation,
Yeah.
going deep into the psyche and looking within, and silent meditation in the dark. I love that. So I'm less concerned about the visuals in my older age and more concerned about, can it help me? I use it to think
Right.
too, new
Right.
ideas, like creative ideas, that kind of
That's
stuff.
what in my life. I mean, there's large periods where I have no interest. There has no call, but there's times where you're going through a lot of change, and it's something that can be helpful because it can be a catalyst to push you past something that's holding you back. And just that look outside yourself for a few hours sometimes is all you need to
Yeah.
realize, oh, I can make this change in life. This is cool. This is a cool change, and I need that sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
cool to have. It's a cool tool to have. You don't need it all the time, but when you need it, it can be there. That's it. It's fun.
So do you feel like do you feel like more of a personal connection then with LSD, like over psilocybin then?
It's all different connections,
Yeah.
like my youngest experiences when I was, I grew up in the church and grew up like preacher's kid and preacher's grandkid. And my mom was a missionary, and we traveled all over doing that. And going from that to really exploring my own spirituality, all these things helped. Peyote was probably one of the most useful things. And now I love having those little cute buttons around, but I couldn't eat one.
I've never actually done I've done mescaline. I've never done peyote though.
Yeah, well, same difference. It all works. The San Pedro, the peyote, the
Yeah, but
powder.
do the other alkaloids do, like, if you've tried,
sure.
like, do
For
the,
sure.
so like which one do you think is like the most intense then out of all those?
For me,
Or I guess the most,
peyote was the
or,
most intense, but it was just the setting. Like
okay.
it was so intentional and so like traditional, and whereas I've eaten San Pedro many times, and it's much, you know, it you can do it alone, off on your own.
Yeah.
It's not so hard to get, so you can buy those legally, and they can be very, very intense. And the Bridgesea, or I don't know how to pronounce it, Bridgesea, there's multiple different kinds, and the alkaloid content I think is usually a little more vicious.
Yeah, I know Hamilton Morris did an episode on that. I think he went down to Wakabamba or one of those places in South America, and yeah, I mean they cut them into like those little slices and boiled them up, and
Man, it's hard to stomach.
does it taste bad?
It's terrible. It's like
Yeah.
battery acid.
Wow.
It's not fun at all, but
Jeez.
it's a cool plant. The connection's amazing. Extracting it is a lot of work.
I'm
So
sure. That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, but
a lot
I
of
feel like I always talk about it. I just feel like this like connection to psilocybin. Like it's just yeah, I've been doing it the longest. I've did it, in my earlier years in high school, and I don't know. I just feel like this. It feels like home or something. Like
right.
and obviously I have my own mental health stuff, with OCD and stuff like that. And I think that all that, the serotonin play off there definitely helps. Not that the other, traditional psychedelics don't do that either, but I just think that, I don't know, there's something there. And I think that when I talk to people, they do favor kind of one more than others or have like a favorite,
Yeah, I think I'm so ADHD that I don't need a favorite. I just love them all.
I could see that with you though, like knowing you and how you are, like your personality and stuff. I could see that for sure. That you just
Yeah.
it's like a go with the
Each
flow.
day I might have a different
Yeah,
different favorite for sure. But yeah, no, I think they all have a place in my heart.
yeah. I mean, and
Oh.
I thought
And
though,
they've
actually,
all been there as like, help. They've all been a help at some point.
right?
It's pretty cool. It really is. Like just to know that they're there to reach out to if you need them,
Yeah,
it's super cool. They're cool relationships to have. And when one has helped you, like you're saying, the mushrooms helped you, like it's awesome to know you have that ally.
right.
Sometimes it's going to challenge you and scare the bejeebus out of you, but it's still like there to show you something you need to see,
Sure.
which is cool.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
neat.
it is challenging at times, but I think if you have the proper reverence and you're sitting, you're ready to do it, and you're at home and you're not doing anything crazy out in public or
Right.
anything, I think it's a different story. Like I said, you can just really be at peace with yourself and travel through your inner space and kind of
Yeah.
explore your mind a little bit more and come up with cool ideas and things you're unable to think of and connect with on a normal consciousness
Yeah.
level. So
I found the past few mushroom experiences have been, I I like to meditate, and I meditate daily. I have a practice, but I don't ever have the time to like sit and meditate for 4 hours. Like that's like not something I usually have as an extra four
right.
hours just sit around. But when you take mushrooms, you've just dedicated 4 to 6 hours,
Right.
and it's cool to like take that time. And I almost get as much out of it when I do say, I'm just going to take 4 hours and sit here and meditate, and it's
Right.
kind of to me, it's that like sign to come to that place, whether you're taking the mushroom or whether you're taking something else or whether you're just sitting down to meditate, like you're
Right.
just going to that space and going to sit there for a bit. And however you get there is up to you.
Yeah, no, and you know what the weird thing is, and I don't know if you felt this too as you got a little bit older, but like I don't feel the need, like I'll try and put on like TV and I'm like I got to turn this off. It's got to be dark or
Yeah.
or I maybe got to put on some music, or I've been listening to like audiobooks sometimes too and just trying to like pay attention to that and think of like visualize that on a different level.
Yeah, so I've definitely listened to some of my favorite books recently in that headspace. The Four Agreements, just listening to that. Oh, it's so good. It's so powerful. And then Nonviolent Communication, his book, is just so cool. It's so cool to listen to it in a different headspace. You hear it from a new perspective. And yeah, I dig listening to those audiobooks. Listening to Paul Selig in that headspace
Okay,
is
so
amazing.
that's you funny.
Amazing.
It's funny you brought that up. So you actually asked me. We were talking a little bit about this, and I heard him on Duncan Trussell Family
Yeah.
Hour, I think.
Yeah.
And he's this medium. Is it a medium or is it a
Channel.
channeler?
There you go.
And he channels these entities, or Melchizedek, which is like this ancient
Yep.
order of priest or something, and you can even find it goes all the way back to like the book of Genesis, kind of.
Right.
And he does this thing where he'll say, it's almost like he's repeating, like some voice is saying something, and then he repeats that voice too.
Yeah. It
and
comes across real quick, and then he'll repeat it.
Right.
It's very odd.
I thought it was interesting. Look, I mean, I'm not really convinced usually by that kind of stuff, but it's like this is at least more fascinating than the other people that are, like that. Did you watch any of those episodes of that near-death thing on Netflix? There's like a bunch of episodes. I didn't like the medium ones at all. I thought they could have just done the near-death thing and then the reincarnation one and the signs from beyond kind of a thing.
Right.
I didn't like
channeling thing is
the physical channeling thing. It just wasn't my thing. But like I said, this guy's a little bit different, and even if it's not coming from some metaphysical realm, he at least is doing his homework, if that makes sense. Like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, his message is definitely on point. I like Paul Selig's stuff a lot. He
seems like a really compassionate person too,
Yeah.
and dedicated his life to like helping people and stuff.
Yeah. So I went to a few of his conferences, classes, workshop, whatever they call, in Burlington, and it was really cool. Just the group of people that gathered for that was awesome, and everybody just kind of, going into the space he takes you together was really fun.
Yeah.
He's a interesting guy. The channeling thing is hard, man. Like, I'm a person that I have a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah.
When Selig's message hit me at like the right place at the right time, I was like, damn, this is weird. I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but all right.
Well, I mean,
Just try it out. But
here's the thing
whole
is,
channeling thing is just, it's hard. Like,
here's
I have trouble.
here's what I'll say. I do believe that there are. Okay, so let me put it this way. We've talked about a million times on this show the hard problem of consciousness.
Yeah.
Nobody knows exactly what consciousness is. Even we've had, some of these psychedelic scientists on, and we're talking about neuroimaging and like how these fMRI studies show that people will come in for studies and they're using certain parts of their brain, and then they'll come back for the second part, and they're using a completely different part of their brain to perform the same function. So it's like, and the way they only know that there's not some like 3D image of the brain where it's showing the neurons firing and certain things or whatever. They actually they track blood flow throughout the brain. That's how they know. So it's like when you look at like the materialistic side of things, science doesn't even know what the hell's going on with that. So it's like I do at least pay attention to a lot of this like metaphysical alternative stuff, because I think that, let's say panpsychism is real and everything has some level of consciousness, then that means that maybe consciousness is primary in the universe. And if that's the case, then our brains might just be receivers. And if they are receivers, maybe there's something else out there that people could tap into. That's the way I would look at that.
The receiver, what's the frequency and where is it coming from? And
Right.
are Pleiadians sending messages through vibrational signals to channels? I don't know.
See, that's the whole planet and star system. That's where I get lost. It's like,
yeah, man,
there's
I
no
have
way
so
to
much
like
trouble.
really know any that. Like that's going way out there. And I know you're a lot more open-minded about this stuff than me, but I
love at least hearing it.
I gotta keep my edge about this stuff. I can't be just, you can't.
Yeah.
I like I said, that how I just explained it is how I think about it as a possibility.
Right. I find the whole thing intriguing, and that's my brain's sometimes so open that it might fall out, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty grounded. So
No, I
I know where I'm at.
I like your philosophy on it. Like you and I were talking about the work of like Dr. Claire Graves, and like spiral dynamics, and this idea of like kind of meeting people on their level
Where
and like
they're
the
at.
evolution of consciousness, and there's
Not to get your way, but simply because you'll have more pleasure and ease of life doing it.
Right.
You don't always need everybody to agree with you, but when you can see them for who they are and they can see you for who you are, it's a whole lot easier to get through life.
Absolutely. And you actually, what I like about you is you have the patience to sit there with somebody who's saying some nutty things and to at least listen and entertain it. Like, where is this person coming from? Like, how does this person think about this? And I, like I said, I love that. I can't do that anymore. I've been
It's a muscle. You can get it back.
I could
You
get it
just gotta
back,
work
but
it back.
there's other things I'm fascinated with. So it's more of like
I get it.
I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm selfish about like what I research. Like when we do this show, it's like what I'm interested in. I'm not doing this to produce content for other people of what I think they might like. This is generally my search for truth and knowledge, and if enlightenment's a thing, that kind of a thing. So, somebody's
That's why
asking
your
about.
show is so awesome, because you're
I
just digging
appreciate
for
that.
the answers you like. That's what makes this so good.
Shadow Time Writer asks about Tom Campbell. Actually, we have done an episode not with Tom Campbell, but on Tom Campbell, one of our buddies. Andrew Tischler came on a while back, and we were discussing My Big Toe, which is his book and theory of everything, and goes into like simulation theory and entropy and like how everything's moving towards love, anthropically. And it's kind of an interesting thing. And he studied with Bob Monroe and stuff like that. Look, I'm open-minded. The only thing I didn't like about that is, and I've heard him talk about it too, is his lack of interest in psychedelics. It's like, here's this thing that allows you to interact in an altered state of consciousness in waking state.
Right.
and it's like we're just going to disregard that because I already know what that is. I don't have to do it, kind of a thing. And it's fine if you're going to say, oh, I don't, whatever. It's just that's just how I think about that. It's like if I'm a scientist, I'm at least going to talk to people that have done it or whatever. That's just my opinion.
That's why Strassman is so amazing because he wants to go to the source. He wants to talk to people and what they actually felt.
Right.
Just why that kind of study is so useful.
Yeah, I mean, he was a fun person to talk to. That episode was kind of heavy science, like I was getting kind of nerded out. I nerded out on it.
Yeah, well, you should. You're sitting in front of Strassman and you're into it. You got to go all the way.
But look, at the end of the day, though, I mean, he does like the mystical side of things, too. He wrote that second book.
Soul of Prophecy.
Soul of Prophecy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that one because that's what got me into this was I was a preacher's kid, a Bible nerd growing up, and his dive into that was just unbelievably cool. The fact that he was willing to broach that topic is just ballsy for a scientist. It's awesome.
Shout out to Shadow Time Rider again. I know he's not against it. If I said that, I didn't mean that. I mean, he just doesn't see them as an essential part of his idea or hypothesis. And I'm saying, I think as somebody who meditates a lot and likes these topics and studies consciousness in my own regards, I think that, I think that it's at least a mistake not to entertain it more. But hey, that's just my opinion. And again, I've read his books. It's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. There's some things I like about it, and then there's some other things. It's like quantum mechanics and quantum physics. It's like if you're gonna get woo with it, that's fine. But it's like I don't know. I would have to see like some experiment like where it happens on the macro level because obviously it's happening at the quantum level. We know that. But I would need to see more happening on more of a larger scale for that to be more convincing for some of the stuff that he's talking about. So, but yeah. So in terms of, let's jump back to psychedelics here for a second. I've never done DMT. We've talked about that a lot on the podcast. I'm not against it or not against doing it. I'm just not out there looking for anything actively, right? So,
I'm blown away. It hasn't slapped you in the face.
Look, man, when I played in bands and was gigging around and had the old friend group and everything, there was a lot of hippies. There's a lot of stuff I probably would have had access to, but I don't really I'm not in that, game anymore. So,
right.
Yeah,
selling, real estate. You don't end up like having somebody hand you a dean pipe. You're not hanging out at the right parties, man.
But the thing is like what I found fascinating was that episode you did on that whole, and people can find it on your podcast, is the one with about Chris Cantelo and the whole DMT cult thing that he kind of cultivated, and it was like an online DMT cult, and that whole story is fascinating. I don't want to go into it too much because I want people to go listen to your episode on it, and your buddy's cracks me up, man. He is too much.
Gerald is a monster.
Gerald is too.
I love that dude. He's got a new podcast. I should plug it for him.
He's this funny as hell Scottish guy that just he just rips through the episode.
Shout out to the Salty Speculation podcast. He's hilarious. But he was one of the main reasons I got into that group because you got to hang with weirdos like him.
Yeah, and it's
awesome,
it's an interesting story, and it's also tragic.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those ones where it's like I guess what I would ask you is just a quick question would be, did you kind of second guess things that you did believe after that, like after going through that, or did that not really kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like being a part of something like that and maybe being too close, did you second guess it after it was over and be like, whoa, what's going, like reassess, or no, not really?
I think so. I think for sure. I think anytime you see something like that where, at first we saw him as some sort of good working, and then that good twisted and changed and became not good.
Right.
To where it was a tragic end. And it does make you step back and say, oh, I put a lot of like energy into these relationships, and wow, that you got, and there were people hurt, there were people hurt, and it makes you step back and say, oh, I need to reassess what the intent of these online communities are. And that was the birth of this project I have now, was a failed group that, it went to hell because there was a leader and there was a guy telling us all how
Right.
great he was. And it was a fun conversation because it wasn't a cult. You can listen to the episode and hear about it, but it it was a
Well,
group of
okay,
really
so
open-minded
let's
people with
talk
a
about that
really
for a second.
pragmatic fella.
Let's talk about that first.
Cool.
Actually, let me bring up something first, and then we'll talk about that. But
All right.
what I was going to say is, and we actually kind of had a weird connection because he actually reached out to me to come on the podcast, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of pushed it off a little bit just because I felt like a weird vibe about this email that he sent with all this like crazy information in it.
Likely
And then
it wasn't even him.
and then I asked a couple people from DMT world. I'm like, do you know this person? Like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, I would, kind of steer clear if
Yeah.
it could have been a fascinating conversation, but it would have been like way out there. There would have been a lot of claims made that could not be
Oh yeah. Oh
verified.
yeah. Insane. A lot of fun. Crazy.
So, but yeah, so maybe we'll dive more into that at a different time. And actually, again,
sure.
go check out his Trent's episode.
Listen to that. Listen to it. Here's my plea. Don't just listen to it. Then come talk to us about it. That's the fun. I don't want to just like, here's my story, listen to it. Come talk to me about it. That's what
Right.
I'm all about. I want to hear people's takes. I want to hear your questions.
Right.
I think they're fun because I should be asking more questions sometimes. I'm pretty open.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be, skeptical. Like, you don't want to be too skeptical, but at the same time, you don't want to just believe anything either. So it's like finding that medium, doing your research, cross-referencing things.
Ruiz's. It's not just the 4 agreements. There's the 5th agreement. Be skeptical, but learn to listen.
There you go.
That's his teaching.
So then my other thing was going to be about, you mentioned it wasn't a cult, but we're in this different age now where like most things are online, especially with everything going on in the world. So everybody's at home or people are always on their computers. Couldn't there be one online? Like, couldn't something exist like that online where it's like the more modern version of that? It's like people are like hooked into this one thing and they'll do anything to protect it, or
I think you definitely could have an online cult. I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility at all.
Yeah. So I guess that's what my point was. I'm not saying that was necessarily, but it was probably the closest thing I would know of in terms of like the psychedelic community of something that's like that, right? I mean,
for sure. It got close. If he would have been more effective, it could have become a cult.
Right. And it went the opposite way, right? Where he like lost everything, but if he would have been gaining, it might have been a different story.
Could have definitely been a different story, for sure. We could have been buying Rolls Royces for this man.
Like Bhagwan, have you ever seen that documentary?
Yeah. Wild Country.
Wild Country is a phenomenal documentary.
Amazing.
I highly recommend. If nobody's seen Wild Country, it's like a 6-part series on Netflix.
Amazing. Go watch it.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure. That man had multiple Rolls Royces bought for him just so he could sleep with people's wives. Amazing.
I think he started out with real knowledge and intentions, and I think it just kind of got, you get involved with Hollywood people, you get involved with money and drugs, and as you mentioned,
I think it was a lot of Law 1 stuff. I think I've seen that come up.
So
a lot of the stuff I read from him.
He early, and there's a lot of people that swear by his book still, or like maybe there's some people that don't even know about the later stuff, that just know about his like early teachings and stuff too. I found, because when we did the episode, I mean, I was somewhat critical because I said he satiated. Basically, what he did was he was trying to find enlightenment through like satiating his own desires.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like he was. His path to enlightenment was satiating himself and like all these experiences and like using Sheila to like, basically as like a shield, but also as like seeing what she could do and what kind of Gurdjieffian experiment that whole thing would turn out to be, so
right.
Interesting stuff.
For sure. But,
yeah, so bicycle day, everybody, be careful out there, stay safe.
For sure.
And we're actually going to probably wrap it up and keep this one short because we're going to record a second one here, and I'll probably upload it tomorrow. But I just wanted to touch on this. I thought it was a good topic for today, and I know
for sure. I
Trent,
think the best
Trent
part
knows his
about
psychs.
Bicycle Day,
So
I think the best part about Bicycle Day isn't it's a good day to do drugs. I think it's a good day to talk about them. We got to make this stuff more normalized. We got to make it okay to talk about this stuff because it's helped. When there's something that's helped you and you're not able to talk about it with people, it's hard. It's much better to be able to say, yeah, I was going through a hard time and this helped me, and being able to talk through your experience and tell other people about it. Like, that's the thing about Bicycle Day I love. We gotta make this stuff more normal to talk about.
100%, 100%. I think that I think you're absolutely right, and I think with the mental health stuff and all the research going into all this, and anybody can watch the episodes we've had. Matthew Johnson and Andrew Gallimore and Rick Strassman and all these fantastic psychedelic scientists on, and talking to them, you see that like these are profound tools that if they can be harnessed in a certain way, or maybe just even kept in the toolbox as just an extra tool in case somebody needs it, or it's just another option. Like I that's the way I look at it. I'm not like this has to be it or this is the way or whatever. Right. I look at it as like another tool, and if it's there if you need it, and if you don't, cool. And I know that they're also working on making some of these compounds, taking some of the alkaloids, the non-psychedelic ones, and seeing if they work. And some of them had success. I think there's one from ibogaine that they extracted that has no psychedelic or no psychedelic alkaloids. Tabernathalog, I think, is the name of it, and it supposedly helps with addiction, but it doesn't have any of the psychedelic effects. So, there's people that are against that. I don't even think, like, why would you be against that? Like, there's some people that there's some people that don't want to experience psychedelics too. Like, that's what, like, as much as I like them and advocate for them, and we talk about it and whatever, I'm not this type of person that thinks everybody should do everything. I think that, again, it should just be a tool for the people there, to use. Cool, if you want to use it, cool. If you don't, if you want to try the one that doesn't have the psychedelic aspects of it, cool,
awesome.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's take what you can and leave the rest, All
right. Well,
awesome.
Let's wrap it up here. Again, go check out Trent's podcast, especially the one that they did on Chris Cantelo. Continuing the conversation, I've linked down below at the bottom. And
join our Discord.
Join their Discord. I'll add the link to that as well after we get done. Also, head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/MindEscapePodcast. For just $2 a month, you'll get exclusive guest episodes and segments. I just uploaded one with Anthony Tyler. I mean, we have tons of good stuff on there. Randall Carlson, Andrew Gallimore. I mean, you look at a lot of the guests that we've had on the show, and there's probably one on there. So check that out. So, and then one more time before we get out here, head on over to indrasweb.org. This is the live, or this is the platform we created, and it is live. So head on over there, create an account if you want to continue this conversation or speculate, hypothesize, theorize on a lot of these outside the box or topics, or regarding metaphysics and the nature of reality. That's the perfect place to do it. So head on over there, and that's it. Everybody stay safe out there. We love you, and thanks again for coming on, Trent. We'll definitely have you back on. Maybe we'll have you back on when Maurice is here too.
That'd be awesome.
All right, everybody, stay safe out there. Peace.